did you know when a crow dies, other crows gather around?
Yeah, it's like a crow funeral, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. They're like investigating.
It's more than just a reaction to death, though. They're actually learning.
Really?
Yeah, Kaylee Swift, she did this study. Wild American crows use funerals to learn about danger.
Wow.
And basically, it turns out that the crows are using these funerals to learn about danger.
Okay, so they're not just mourning. They're like trying to figure out what happened.
Exactly. It's like, okay, why did this crow die?
Right.
So we don't end up the same way. And she focused on crows in Washington State.
Oh.
So it's not like, everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Specific crows. So how do they figure this out? Did they just watch them?
So she did a series of experiments.
Ooh, experiments.
3 of them. The first one was all about different stimuli.
Stimuli, okay.
So, they presented the crows with different things.
Okay.
Like a dead crow.
Makes sense.
A hawk.
Oh, a predator.
Right. A hawk with a dead crow.
Oh, interesting.
To see if they'd connect the two.
Right.
And then, just for kicks, a masked human.
Okay. Just to see, what their baseline reaction is.
Yeah, exactly. How do they react to a weird thing?
Right. So they're seeing if they link the hawk to the dead crow. Like, oh, the hawk must have killed the crow.
Exactly. And then they tracked this thing called sight avoidance.
Sight avoidance.
So basically, would the crows avoid the area where they saw these stimuli even after they were gone?
Makes sense.
Like if I saw something scary in a particular spot,
Yeah, you'd probably avoid it.
I'd probably be like, nope, not going there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So did they avoid the spots?
They did for up to 72 hours.
Really? So they're not just reacting in the moment. They're actually changing their behavior.
Yeah, they're learning. This is a dangerous place.
That's wild. Okay, but what about the masked human? Did they just forget about that?
This is the crazy part.
Okay.
They actually remembered the masked human.
No way.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, that guy was there when the dead crow was there. Maybe he's bad news.
Exactly. And this is after one exposure.
Wow. So they're learning really quickly.
Super quickly.
That's amazing. Okay, but how did they react to, the dead crow versus the hawk? Was there a difference?
Oh, yeah. So with dead crow, they freaked out.
What does a crow freak out look like?
Scolding, mobbing.
Mobbing, what's that?
They all, gather around and just yell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like a crow protest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is bad news.
Okay, so dead crow, big freak out. What about the hawk?
Similar. They know hawks are predators.
Right.
But the hawk with the dead crow, even bigger freak out.
Really? It's like they're putting the pieces together.
Exactly. Oh, the hawk must have killed the crow.
Wow. So they're learning about danger from their dead buddies.
Exactly. It's danger learning. They're using the Beth to learn.
Fascinating. But did they avoid all the spots equally? Did they avoid the hawk spot just as much as the dead crow spot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for all 3, hawk, dead crow, hawk with dead crow, the avoidance was about the same.
Huh. So it's like the place itself becomes dangerous no matter what caused it.
Right, it's like something bad happened here. I'm not taking any chances.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like better safe than sorry.
Exactly. So they wanted to take this further.
Further.
Yeah, they introduced a new variable.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What was it?
A dead pigeon.
A dead pigeon. What, did they think the crows were going to have a funeral for a pigeon?
They wanted to see, if it was just death that triggered the reaction.
Oh, okay, so like a control group.
Exactly.
What happened? Did they freak out about the pigeon?
Some scolding, some mobbing,
Okay.
but way less intense than the dead crow.
Huh. So a dead pigeon is not as big a deal.
Not as much of a threat.
What do you think that is?
Well, a dead bird could be food, right?
Right.
But it could also be a sign of danger.
Right. If something killed that pigeon, it could kill me too.
Exactly. And for a crow, a dead crow is a much bigger sign of danger.
So they're thinking, okay, a dead pigeon, maybe it just died of natural causes.
Right. Or something that doesn't threaten me.
But a dead crow, that means there's something out there that kills crows.
Exactly.
Which means it could kill me.
So they're much more cautious.
Wow, that's incredible. They're really thinking this through.
They are. They're smart birds.
Clearly. Okay, so crows have funerals for danger learning. What else did they find out?
Well, there's one more experiment, and it gets even more interesting.
Okay, let's hear it.
But first, we got to take a quick break.
All right, we'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive into crow funerals. Right here on The Deep Dive. Okay, so we were talking about how crows use funerals to learn about danger.
Right. And how they remember those dangerous situations.
Yeah, like the masked human, they remembered him even weeks later.
Weeks later, yeah. And they were still avoiding him.
So it's not just a quick reaction. They actually hold on to that fear.
Exactly. It's like they're thinking, nope, not going near that guy again.
Smart birds. But did the researchers try to, like, undo that fear?
Yeah, they wanted to see if they could extinguish that learned fear.
Okay, how did they do that?
They kept exposing the crows to the masked human, but without anything bad happening.
So, like, showing them he's not a threat anymore?
Exactly.
Did it work?
Not really.
Oh, so they're still scared, even after seeing him multiple times.
Yeah, they didn't really show what's called fear extinction.
So basically, once they learn something is dangerous, they stick with that.
Pretty much. It makes sense from a survival standpoint.
Right. Like, if they're wrong about a threat, it could be fatal.
Exactly. Better to be safe than sorry.
Especially for a crow, they have so many predators.
Right, so that caution probably helped them survive and thrive.
So they're conscious, they're smart, they learn from each other.
And that brings us to our last experiment.
Okay, what's this one about?
They wanted to compare crows to another common bird, pigeons.
Pigeons. Interesting. Like, did they do pigeon funerals too?
Well, they introduced a dead pigeon to the pigeons,
Okay.
and basically nothing.
Nothing.
The pigeons pretty much ignored the dead pigeon.
No scolding, no mobbing, no investigating.
Nope, they just didn't care.
Wow, so no pigeon funerals. That's so different from the crows.
Very different.
So why do you think crows react so strongly, but pigeons don't? Are pigeons just dumb?
It's not about intelligence. It's probably more about their social structure.
Oh, okay. So crows are very social.
Yeah, very. They have these complex communication systems.
And pigeons.
They live in flocks, but their interactions aren't as intricate.
So maybe that shared learning, that danger learning, is part of what makes crows so successful.
Possibly. Yeah. And they live much longer than pigeons, too.
Oh, so they have more time to learn, more time to witness these things.
Exactly. More time to experience those funerals and gather that information.
It's like they're constantly updating their guide to staying alive.
That's a great way to put it. And it seems like those funerals are a big part of that guide.
Incredible. Crows are so much smarter than we give them credit for.
Absolutely. They're teaching us a lot about intelligence and adaptation.
And maybe even about ourselves.
Possibly. But for now, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Wow, that was fascinating. We learned so much about crow funerals.
We did, from their reactions to threats.
To their avoidance behavior.
And even their social learning.
It's clear that crows are much more than just bird brains.
They're complex creatures with incredible abilities.
So the next time you see a crow, take a moment to appreciate its intelligence.
And remember, even a crow funeral can teach us something valuable.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. All right, so we've learned a lot about crow funerals, how they're not just about mourning, but about learning and survival.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how they use these events to gather information, assess threats, and adapt their behavior.
I mean, who knew there was so much going on in those little crow brains?
Right. They're much more complex than we often give them credit for.
I'm curious, what do you think is the biggest takeaway from this research?
Well, for me, it's the reminder that we should never underestimate animals, even those we might think are, ordinary.
Yeah, like pigeons, for example.
Exactly. Crows are showing us that intelligence can come in many forms.
And that it's shaped by the specific challenges each species faces.
Right. It's not just about having a big brain. It's about how you use it.
And crows are clearly using theirs very effectively. I mean, they're thriving in all sorts of environments, even urban areas.
Exactly. And a big part of that success is their social nature, their ability to learn from each other, to communicate, to cooperate.
Yeah, those crow funerals are like little information hubs.
Exactly. They're sharing crucial knowledge about danger and survival.
It makes you wonder what else we could learn from crows.
Yeah, there's still so much to discover.
I mean, we've just scratched the surface of their intelligence.
I think that's what's so exciting about studying animal behavior,
It's like constantly opening up new windows into the natural world.
And maybe even into ourselves.
Right. Understanding other species can help us understand our own place in the world.
Absolutely. But getting back to crows specifically, you mentioned earlier that this research could have practical implications for, managing crow populations.
Yeah, especially in urban areas.
Right.
Where they can sometimes cause problems.
Right. So thinking about what we've learned, their aversion to certain stimuli.
Like that masked human.
Exactly. We could potentially use that to our advantage.
How so?
Well, imagine if we could consistently associate, certain people or uniforms
Okay.
with negative experiences for crows.
Like, I don't know, harmless hazing techniques or something.
Yeah, things like that. They might learn to avoid those people.
And the areas they frequent?
Exactly. It's like using their intelligence to, kind of steer them in a certain direction,
So instead of trying to, like, trap them or get rid of them,
which is often ineffective
Yeah.
and, not very humane.
we could essentially train them to stay away from certain areas.
Exactly. It's like working with their natural instincts rather than against them.
I like that. It's a much more, I don't know, a smarter approach.
Yeah, it's using their smarts to our advantage.
It's a win-win,
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, more research is needed, of course.
but it's a promising avenue, and it really highlights how understanding animal behavior,
Can help us find solutions to real-world problems.
it's like science in action,
Exactly. So, yeah, I think the key takeaway here is that there's always more to learn, even from creatures we might consider, ordinary.
or even annoying sometimes.
Right. Crows are teaching us that intelligence and adaptation, they can take many forms.
And that by studying them, we can gain a deeper understanding of the natural world and our place in it. Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. Crows, they're amazing creatures,
They really are.
full of surprises. So the next time you see a crow, maybe don't just shoo it away.
Right. Take a moment to appreciate its intelligence, its resourcefulness.
And maybe even its sense of community.
And who knows, maybe you'll even learn something from it.
Great point. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive, everyone.